The genin taking part in the Chunin exams stood in front of the mesh iron gates that protected them from a large, dark forest. The forest, otherwise known as Training Ground 44 and the Forest of Death, was filled with a wide variety of giant beasts and creatures. The Onbu often used the place as a training ground due to its extreme dangers, but it was common for it to be used for the second stage of the Chunin exams. Anko Mitarashi stood in front of the gates leading to the forest. The genin stood in groups separated by village, awaiting the rules of the exam. Anko briefly explained to them that each team would either get a Earth Scroll or a Heaven Scroll. Then, they would have to retrieve the other scroll from another team. Those who did not arrive at the tower in the center of the forest by the end of 5 days with their scrolls would not move on to the third stage. You may do whatever you like in order to get your scrolls. You can steal, fight, team up, and even kill. But, to continue with this stage, you must each sign consent forms. The leaf cannot be held responsible for whatever fate may bring you. Naruto and Hinata smirked. The two had managed to slip into the forest when they were younger. They believed it would be good training. Unfortunately, they were only 10 at the time, and almost got eaten by a massive bear. If Kakashi, who was not in the middle of his own training, had not held the bear back for a second, they might have lost one of their limbs. But they still knew the layout, and the best way to the tower. "What's with the smirk, Whiskers?" Anko asked, noticing the confident looks the genin had on their face, even though failure was punishable by death. She decided to test their confidence by throwing a kunai at Naruto. Naruto noticed the projectile and easily sidestepped, avoiding the kunai. He then felt the breasts of Anko press against his back. Most of the guys had their mouths wide open, wishing they were in Naruto's position. Naruto, unlike most, was not very happy with his position, neither was Hinata. "So, kid, you think you got what it takes to survive the exams?" Naruto smirked. "I don't know." Naruto vanished and reappeared behind Anko, a kunai pressed against her back, and a trickle of blood running down her cheek from the cut Naruto gave her. "Do you think I have what it takes?" Anko licked her lips. "I would say so," she replied, wiping the blood away from her cheek, licking her finger happily. Suddenly, a head attached to a long neck appeared beside Anko. The head belonged to a female wearing a straw hat. The hidden Sound Village symbol was carved into the headgear, her snake-like tongue holding a kunai. "Just wanted to return your kunai." "Why, thank you, friend," Anko replied with a smile. The head nodded and returned its neck to normal length. Anko was about to send the genin to receive their first scroll when she felt a kunai slip into her pouch. She turned to Naruto, who was there standing with a serious look on his face. "Read the message right after you start the exams," he whispered, before vanishing in a flash of speed to join his team. Anko watched him leave, curious as to what her little friend was talking about, but she decided to listen to him. Once she heard the bell for the genin to enter the forest, she reached back into her pocket. She pulled out the kunai to see a note wrapped around the handle. She unfolded the paper and could not help but let out a gasp. With Team 8. Naruto, Hinata, and Shino were jumping from tree to tree on their way through the Forest of Death. The three had each sent shadow clones to take care of their second scroll. Naruto's returned with 3 Earth Scrolls and 2 Heaven Scrolls. Hinata's with 2 of each, Shino's with 1 each. They now had plenty of scrolls and had taken out some of the competition. They continued to jump through the forest before Naruto paused on a branch, making his friends stop. "What do you sense?" Shino asked, knowing what the look on Naruto's face meant. He was sensing negative emotions. "He's here, in the forest. Hinata, find him," Naruto said in a serious tone. Hinata nodded and activated her Byakugan, making the veins around her eyes expand. She quickly scanned the area. "Found him. Sakura and Sasuke are in front of him. Kiba's a few meters away fighting a giant snake. Follow me." Team 8 nodded and dashed toward Team 7 at near top speed, making sure not to leave Shino behind. As they neared, they could all feel the killer intent coming off in waves. Even Naruto, who possessed a tailed beast with infinite ki, had a bead of sweat on his brow. They entered a small clearing atop a cluster of large branches. On one side stood Sasuke, clutching his neck in pain. Sakura stood over him. Hiba had just arrived and stood in front of the enemy. It was the woman that gave Anko her kunai back after throwing it at Naruto. Before anyone could tell what was happening, Naruto deactivated his gravity seals and appeared behind the attacker, slicing them in two with his sword. "Naruto, where did you come from? Why'd you butt into my fight?" Hiba said angrily. "No matter how hard you try, you can't beat him. After all, he is a legendary Sannin." "Quite true, Naruto Uzumaki," said a male voice. Naruto looked at the upper part of the enemy's body to see another, whole body emerging from its mouth. The person stood up to reveal his true self. The man wore plain gray garbs with a large purple rope tied around his waist. Underneath, he wore black pants and sandals, with bandages around his calves. He had blue earrings shaped like a Sharingan Tomo. He had long, dark hair in contrast to his pale skin. His eyes were gold with slitted pupils. Purple markings also came around his eyes to halfway down his nose. Orochimaru, one of the Sannin, together with the strongest ninja in the Leaf Village besides the Hokage. But Orochimaru abandoned the village in pursuit of immortality and to learn every jutsu in the world. Now, from how Sasuke is acting, my guess is that you are planning to use him in your experiments, Naruto explained, never taking his eyes off Orochimaru. "I see you've done your studying. To think that a genin, even at your level, could cut me down so easily. Granted, I was not expecting you to show up to save these weaklings." Naruto stayed impassive while Hinata and Shino went to check on Team 8. Hiba, understanding Orochimaru's power, knew it would be better off staying out of Naruto's way. He jumped back to Sakura and Sasuke. Sasuke is passed out. He has 3 black markings on his neck, as well as a bite mark from Orochimaru. My best guess? It's a sort of seal. So, he wants Sasuke for his Sharingan. Plans to use those eyes to learn jutsu at a faster rate, Naruto mused. "So, shall we dance, Uzumaki?" Orochimaru asked as he weaved through hand signs. "Hidden shadow snakes," he said, releasing multiple snakes from his hands aimed at Naruto. Naruto readied his sword. "Fire style, dragon fire jutsu." A flame the shape of a dragon flew through the snakes, destroying them instantly. Orochimaru looked up to see his old student, Anko Mitarashi, standing on a tree overhead. "Well, it's been a while, Anko. How's that curse mark of yours? Still hurt?" Anko replied with a wave of ki, keeping her eyes locked on her former sensei. "This time, I will kill you, Orochimaru." Orochimaru smiled wickedly. "Well, you can try, my dear Anko." The snake Sannin activated his hidden shadow snakes and sent them towards Naruto and Anko. Anko jumped down and began cutting the oncoming snakes with the kunai. Naruto took a second sword and dashed towards Orochimaru, dodging the snakes. The Sannin tensed and was about to use another jutsu when he felt a searing pain in his back. He looked down to see 2 fiery blades pierced through his chest. "So, this is your Hell's Fire Dash. An impressive jutsu. It got past my defenses without my noticing. Too bad you don't have the Sharingan to copy it." Naruto pulled the swords away. "Your body replacement jutsu will heal you of all injuries. But you cannot fight me and Anko without alerting the rest of the Leaf Shinobi about your location. How true, the new Orochimaru replied, appearing from his earlier body. I'm sure we will meet again, Naruto Uzumaki, my dear Anko. Orochimaru stood up and transformed into 100 snakes, disappearing. Anko growled in anger, trying to sense the snake's presence. Naruto put his blades away and walked towards his comrades. Anko, go to the Hokage and inform him about Orochimaru. We will take Sasuke there after you. Once there, we can help the Uchiha. Anko nodded slowly before dashing off towards the tower in the center of the Forest of Death. Naruto turned back to Hinata, who still had her Byakugan active. He's gone. They then turned to Shino. I have one of my bugs planted on him. If necessary, I can track him. Naruto nodded. He turned to Kiba and Sakura, who were holding the unconscious Sasuke. Does your team have your 2 scrolls? No, Kiba responded. Orochimaru stole ours. Hinata pulled out an Earth and Heaven scroll and handed them to the Inuzuka. He was about to interject, but stopped himself, remembering that they were in a competition and that one of their teammates was down for the count. He took them and stored them in his pouch. Naruto took Sasuke and lifted him over his shoulder. He beckoned for the others to follow, and dashed through the trees. A few minutes later, they were walking to the foot of the tower. The group turned to see another group exiting the forest. It was Gaara and his siblings. The siblings froze as they saw who stood before them. Naruto Uzumaki. Now we can fight and prove my existence, Gaara said as sand slowly rose around him. Not now, desert boy. I got an arrogant Uchiha to deal with, Naruto said before running inside, leaving an angry Gaara at the entrance. Forest Tower, Hokage Observation Room. So, Orochimaru gave Sasuke a curse mark in order to take his body someday. I'm impressed. Both that you figured it out and that you were able to chase him off, Hiruzen said as Naruto placed Sasuke on the floor. I'm also surprised, kid. Even after training with him, I've had a challenging time keeping up, Anko said as she inspected the mark on Sasuke's neck. It was identical to hers. Spend your childhood training, have some connections, and you can fight almost anyone. Granted, I only caught him by surprise. That won't happen again, Naruto replied as he pulled out a paintbrush and ink. He began drawing intricate seals on the ground around the Uchiha. He then pulled out a large bag of leaves. The others watched him in confusion as he placed the leaves around the seal. The chakra on the curse mark is not normal. My best guess is that it also has natural chakra infused with it. And the best way to deal with natural chakra is natural chakra. I collected all these leaves from the trees in the village with the richest natural energy. My hope is that they will cancel out the curse mark. You can sense natural chakra? Hiruzen asked. Fox can, Naruto responded. The first Hokage, Hashirama Senju's wood style combined with his own proficiency in natural chakra made the forests within and surrounding the village hold immense energy. I still have a long way to go before I will ever be able to use nature chakra besides this seal. Hiruzen smiled fondly at the blonde he recognized as his grandson. He reminded himself to find someone who could teach him how to use nature chakra. Once he was finished, he asked Anko to wake up Sasuke. She nodded and held her hand high in the air before bringing it hard across Sasuke's face. Naruto began weaving hand signs as the Uchiha groaned. Anko and the Hokage took a step back as purple chakra began to swirl around Sasuke. The boy turned his head to Naruto. His Sharingan opened. You, dope. Are you trembling in your boots at this power I now have? Hardly, Naruto replied. This technique is an anti-sealing jutsu. I originally created this for another purpose, but I might as well put it to use. Ninja art. Seal removal jutsu. Naruto slammed his hands on the ground, making the seals on the floor emit a blue glow. The writing quickly traveled up Sasuke's body. The boy began to shriek in pain as the writing wrapped around the curse mark. The leaves were slowly withering away due to their loss of natural energy. Slowly, the mark began to fade from Sasuke's neck. Once it had disappeared, the seals traveled back towards Naruto. He placed a paper tag on the ground. The seal crawled onto the tag before the curse mark appeared in its place. Sasuke finished screaming before finally passing out from the strain of losing such a strong chakra. Naruto picked up the tag before destroying it with fire chakra. He was instantly bombarded by the body of Anko, who had tears in her eyes. "Naruto, you are so cool. Please, you have to use that jutsu to remove my curse mark." Hiruzen let out a chuckle before signaling an Anbu to enter the room and take Sasuke to his quarters. After begging Anko to release him, Naruto redrew the seal. "Ninja art, seal removal jutsu," Naruto said, doing the same gestures as before. Once the curse mark appeared on the paper, he handed it to the weakened Anko, who wished to destroy the mark herself. "Unfortunately, I don't know how effective the leaves were. It is possible the mark could have left traces of its chakra inside your system. It's possible that Orochimaru's influence might be able to reactivate the mark later. Only time will tell." "Thank you, Naruto," the Hokage said, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. "Due to your strength, you have helped both a strong Genin and one of my best Jonin." "Just doing my job as a leaf shinobi," Naruto responded with a smile. Over the next few days, Naruto and his team spent their time training with friends from other teams who had arrived at the tower. Shino had decided to do some sparring with Kiba and Choji. Hinata continued to help Sakura, as well as Ino, who was also beginning to train a little harder. Naruto went to Rock Lee, saying he was willing to spar with him. Lee had surprisingly refused, saying he wanted to wait for the official fight during the exam, so he decided to continue working on seals. He was interrupted by Tenten, who had noticed his work. She began begging him to help her with her own seals. She was apparently a weapons mistress and stored her tools inside storage seals. After learning about her skills, Naruto decided to help her out with what he could. The only ones to not train were Sasuke, because he was still weakened from losing the curse mark. Neji, because he was too arrogant to join in who he considered weaklings. And Shikamaru, who was just lazy and decided to spend his time staring at clouds. Finally, the 5th day ended, and the second stage of the exam came to a close. The remaining teams were gathered in a large room with balconies on either side, with a statue of a pair of hands forming the hand ram sign. "First off, I want to congratulate you for passing the second exam," the third Hokage said, addressing the Genin. "Unfortunately, there are too many of you to move on to the final stage, so we will be holding preliminary matches. Those of you who defeat your opponent by either forfeit or knockout will move on. Those of you who wish to back out now, this is your chance." After a brief discussion about the exams being a substitute for war, the only ones to leave were Kabuto and his team, despite them not having any major wounds. Naruto gave a slight nod to Shino, who was already a step ahead. He had one of his insects go with Kabuto as they left. A man with tired eyes stepped forward. He wore the standard Jonin outfit and a blue bandana over his brown hair. "My name is Hayate Gecko. I will be your proctor for the preliminaries." He stopped talking as he was bombarded by a fit of coughs. "When your name appears on the screen above you, please come down to the stage. Everyone understand?" The Genin nodded. "Then, may we have all non-combatants join their senseis on the balconies. The first match will be Naruto Uzumaki versus Rock Lee."